had a revelation from God that she was going to die. So she started making plans. A prolific journal writer, she began documenting her own death, not as a possibility, but as a certainty. Her entries grew disturbingly detailed. She outlined funeral plans, left instructions for her children, and even urged her husband, Doug, whom she had remarried just 3 weeks earlier, to marry a specific woman after she was gone. And none of it was a secret. She had told her mother that her time was running out and that she would not be around much longer. Despite those warnings, friends and family were stunned when just days later, a tragic accident found Faylene at the base of a cliff. How could she have known? Was it divine insight, eerie coincidence, or something else? What twisted reality was at play beneath the surface that led to her foreseeing her fate? Welcome back to Crime A to Z, where we detail cases and criminals from their very beginning until well after other reporting ends. Today, we'll be talking about the case of Faylene Grant, a tragic story that takes wild and unexpected turns in all the wrong places. It's the heartbreaking account of a young mother's death and the almost unbelievable circumstances that surround it. And just when you think you've heard it all, brace yourself for the Z section, where you'll either feel relief or anger, or perhaps both. Faylene Eves Grant was born on December 31st, 1965 in Show Low, Arizona. She later grew up in Mesa, Arizona, where she lived with her mother, Glenna Lee Johnson Eves, stepfather, Doug Eves, 2 sisters, Jody and Shirlene, and a brother, Duggar. They were devout Mormons, and Faylene was known for her kindness and generosity, and for her deeply rooted religious beliefs. Her sunny disposition made people feel welcome and loved, which earned her many friends and admirers. In 1986, when Faylene was 22, she married Philip Curtis.
Yo, can you hear me now? Yes, sir. Yo, Sean, Gavin, how are the boys today, man? How are the dudes today, Jayski? Eh? I bet you Jayski's still locked up in that tower. Poor guy. I have to get him on the wave. Discord message. If not. People right now. Oh shit. We gonna grind. Damn, son. Damn, son. Hey, boys, love is in the air. Is that why it smells like semen in my room?
Stradling, who went by Kurt. The couple had 2 children, Jenna and Austin. Given her deep faith, Faylene often sought guidance for major life decisions through fasting and hours of prayer. She let her faith and belief in personal revelation guide her decisions, including eventually divorcing Kurt, which she felt was divinely inspired. As she grew older, Faylene's passion for health and wellness became another defining feature of her life. She took pride in maintaining a healthy lifestyle, embracing fitness and nutrition as part of her daily routine. It was her commitment to fitness that connected her with her future husband. In 1993, Faylene met Doug Grant, a charismatic businessman who owned a thriving nutrition company. Like Faylene, Doug was also a single parent and was also in the process of a divorce. He also had a son named Bowen. Doug was an ambitious innovator in the world of nutrition and fitness who worked with several high-profile clients, including professional athletes from the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Phoenix Suns.
Today is the day a lot of bitches, a woman, sorry, find out they either a man or a side bitch. Yeah. True, Sean, true. True. Chat, one thing I could never do, boys, is be stuck in a relationship again, man. Holy fuck. I think I could ever do that. Been through it for sure. I mean, I just don't want to go through it. I just don't want to go through it, buddy. Fuck that shit.
Also like Faylene, Doug was a member of the Mormon faith, specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of
The
Latter-day
Church
Saints.
of Jesus.
The two bumped into each other at a gym, and having actually attended high school together, they quickly reconnected and bonded over their mutual interests of fitness, nutrition, single parenthood, and their faith. The couple began dating and married later that year, 4 months after Doug's divorce was final. They expanded their family with 2 more sons, Marley, born in 1994, and Braven, born in 1997. From the outside, they appeared to have an ideal life, one which was rooted in shared values, faith, and success. While Faylene's faith brought her comfort, it also strongly influenced her decisions. She had an unwavering belief in divine messages, interpreting her visions as communications from God meant to guide her path. These beliefs had already impacted her first
I'm
marriage,
just waiting
with
to
her feeling
rip
that
that
she was
toke,
divinely
Sean. I haven't
inspired to
forgot.
divorce her first husband, Kurt. And similar impressions later led her to suspect Doug of cheating. When she confronted him, Doug admitted to having had multiple affairs despite strict teaching by the LDS against infidelity. Coupled with his admission, Faylene experienced additional visions that convinced her that divorcing Doug was necessary. It was part of a divine plan that she could not ignore. She told Doug about her visions and asked for a divorce.
Bro, I really don't feel
Despite
too
his
good right
affairs,
now.
Doug
Holy
is
shit.
reported to have been devastated when Faylene filed for divorce, as he valued their faith and family life. But, honoring her wishes, he granted her the divorce, and the two parted ways in June of 2000. Doug's path led him straight into the arms of his newly hired 19-year-old receptionist, Hillary DeWitt, who was also a Mormon and was 16 years his junior. Despite the split, Doug's company remained a family affair. 5 of Fayleen's relatives held senior management roles, including her parents, 2 siblings, and her sister-in-law. Interestingly, Fayleen's brother Duggar was the one who hired Hillary shortly after Fayleen filed for divorce, and the 2 of them began dating soon afterward. Many were surprised by Doug and Hillary's relationship, pointing out their significant age difference and what some perceived as a physical mismatch. Hillary's cousin even mentioned that she told her, "He's like a little man. He's old. He's bald. Why? You're beautiful." She said Hillary replied, "He's sexy and powerful." But before that relationship had a chance to advance too far, Fayleen had a change of heart. In early 2001, she and Doug met in Dallas to attend mediation for a civil lawsuit where they were both plaintiffs. While they were there, they discussed the possibility of getting back together. Doug returned to Hillary and told her he needed to work out his feelings, while Fayleen headed to a temple to pray and ask God what she should do. She told Doug that getting back with him would take an angel from God coming down and telling her to do so. But despite the magnitude of that requirement, she called Doug early the next morning and told him that while she was in the temple praying, God did indeed tell her that she needed to remarry him. Hillary, who was there when he received the call, having just stayed the night with him, was crushed.
And he came out of the bathroom, and I was standing there, and I said, "It's over, isn't it?" And he said, "It's over."
Doug ended his relationship with Hillary to remarry Fayleen. They got married a few months later in Las Vegas, 1 year after their divorce.
Nice.
But life after the remarriage was far from smooth. Fayleen often turned to her journal, filling its pages with thoughts, prayers, and personal reflections of everything happening in her life. It was her means of processing her emotions and seeking divine guidance. But at some point, her writing took a darker turn. She had visions of her own death and began preparing for what she believed was God's plan. She wrote about being told by God that she was going to die and about feeling spiritually prepared to do so. Still, Fayleen pressed forward, living her life and trusting in the path she believed God had set before her. 2 months into their remarriage, Doug and Fayleen set out for a second honeymoon to Mount Timpanogos, an area known for its alpine scenery and hiking trails.
I feel sick right now,
Once there, they set out for a hike. They were both enjoying the views when Fayleen experienced what she described as a spiritual vision, specifically Jesus in the clouds. According to Doug, Fayleen was eager to get a closer look and climbed over a rock wall to get better perspective. She then lost her footing and fell. She fell approximately 60 feet, but miraculously, she survived, only suffering cuts and deep bruises, no broken bones. A large pine tree is believed to have cushioned her fall, softening the impact and likely saving her life. Medical staff found it odd that she didn't have more serious injuries, considering the height of the fall. Fayleen confirmed Doug's account of the events, describing how her knee buckled just before she fell. When she landed, she said she was conscious but dazed. She urged Doug to not take her to the emergency room, but he insisted. There, she was treated and released just over an hour later, sent home with medication for her pain. The couple stayed with a nearby friend for a couple days before flying back home to Arizona. What her loved ones did not know at the time was that in addition to the journal entries she had made preparing for her own death, she had also left notes of Mormon scripture throughout the house before she left on the trip, and arranged personal items with notes on them to her loved ones about who should receive them after she's gone. But friends and family were completely unaware of the concerning notes. Their focus was on helping Fayleen physically heal. Doug even contacted his physician assistant friend, Chad White, to assess Fayleen's condition at their home. White observed that despite her minor injuries, Fayleen appeared in relatively good spirits. To manage her pain and sleep difficulties, he administered a pain relief injection and prescribed a muscle relaxant, along with a prescription for a limited supply of Ambien tablets to help her sleep. White explicitly instructed Doug to not fill the Ambien prescription unless the muscle relaxant proved ineffective, emphasizing the importance of not combining the medications. White also told Doug to call him before filling the Ambien prescription if it ended up being needed. But sadly, as Fayleen had envisioned, her days were indeed numbered. Doug would find Fayleen the very next morning, lifeless, in their bathtub. On the heels of an already highly suspicious fall, investigators had questions. They started with the most concerning development, Fayleen's death. On the morning of September 27, 2001, Doug said he awoke and immediately found Fayleen submerged and unresponsive in their bathtub. He said that at some point in the middle of the night prior, Faylene had awoken in pain, but either he or she was unsure of whether she had taken one of the Ambien to help her get back to sleep. He said that she later decided to take a bath because she had urinated in the bed. He said that he dozed
almost
off as
fucking
she began
killed
drawing a
myself
bath.
right there.
Doug said
Just
he
saying,
began
almost
CPR
killed
on
myself.
Faylene and contacted his physician assistant friend Chad White.
Almost
White
fucking
then
killed
called
myself right there.
911
That's
while en
crazy.
route to his home.
Holy shit.
White arrived and began CPR as well. But with nearly every compression, only water or vomit were expelled. Doug knelt nearby, wailing and sobbing. Paramedics transported Faylene to a hospital in Mesa, where she was placed on life support.
Almost
Blood
forgot the
tests revealed
shield.
that Faylene had a high concentration of Ambien in her system, enough to render her unconscious. Despite medical efforts, doctors determined that her brain activity had ceased. Later that day, Doug authorized the removal of life support, and Faylene was pronounced dead that afternoon. Doug provided police with Faylene's journals as evidence that Faylene had carried out her plan as described in her writings. Based on Doug's version of events, authorities classified Faylene's death as an accidental drowning. But Faylene's family wasn't so sure. While law enforcement found no evidence of foul play, her family felt that Doug's actions around the time of her death proved otherwise. And it began the moment he said he found his wife in the bathtub. Instead of calling 911, Doug chose to call his physician assistant friend. Once Chad White called 911 on his way to the Grant's home, he told the dispatcher, "I just got a distress call from a friend of mine who just called me. I don't know if he's already called you." He said his wife is unconscious and she took all the medicine he had. His wife, I think she overdosed. I couldn't understand. He was frantic. He told me to get over there because I'm a PA. And I told him to call 911 and he said, I'm afraid to. I don't know why he said that. Then there was his stepdaughter Jenna's recollection of the morning, which conflicted with Doug's account. She reported to police that Doug had already been up and in the kitchen, probably getting some food for one of her little brothers, before Faylene was found in the bathtub. While the statement from the 11-year-old, particularly the word probably, was far from definitive, it conflicted with Doug's statement that he was asleep in bed until just before he found Faylene in the tub. And the question of why she drowned at all was also at issue. Contrary to Chad White's instructions, Doug had filled and administered all of the prescriptions, including the Ambien, without consulting with White. This decision raised concerns considering the potential risks associated with combining the medications. White also stated, "When I was giving Faylene CPR, Doug kept saying, 'I'm so sorry.' I gave her a sleeping pill, and then she went and got in the bathtub, and I woke up." He was real frantic about it. And back to Faylene's detailed journal entries. In those entries, she wrote about her acceptance of dying early, believing it was God's will for her to fulfill a mission beyond this life. She included specific instructions for her family after her death, even expressing a desire for Doug to marry his former girlfriend, Hillary DeWitt, and for the two of them to raise her and Doug's children together. After remarrying Doug, Faylene actually began writing letters and making frequent calls to Hillary, taking on the role of a spiritual mentor to the young woman whose heart had been broken when Faylene remarried Doug. "I have held a secret hope and desire for several weeks that I would be able to see you both married, that I could be there. For some reason, this desire for you to be married immediately and to see you sitting together as husband and wife at my funeral has been so strong. I pray that your home will be protected from the adversary and filled with the Holy Ghost. I know it will be." In a letter addressed to her children, she mentioned inviting Hillary to sit at the table as your mother while I am away, making it clear that she wanted Hillary to become a mother figure to their children. Faylene also wrote about her belief that Doug and Hillary would have a baby girl together, the daughter Faylene always thought that she would have someday. Faylene's journals also revealed her concerns about Doug's cheating again, even after they remarried. And while Faylene's journal entries were troubling enough on their own, what seemed to be the source of them was even more disturbing. Based on her writings, her premonitions of dying were driven by Doug's interpretations of what he told her were divine messages, even convincing her to accept another woman taking her place as both wife and mother. In her journals, she wrote about Doug's recurring dreams, where he envisioned her departure to the celestial kingdom. In an entry dated September 5th, 2001, she expressed her acceptance of this fate, stating, "I must have faith in Doug's vision. He dreams it every night now, that I will get to go to the celestial kingdom. The celestial kingdom is the highest degree of glory in Latter-day Saint theology. On the very day of Faylene's death, it's reported that a neighbor saw Doug and Hillary embracing at a local park, suggesting they were in a romantic relationship. During that reported encounter, at which point Faylene had not even been buried yet, Doug allegedly told Hillary that she would be his wife soon. Doug was said to have given her several $100s in cash and showed her the letter from Faylene encouraging them to marry. Phone records would later reveal that despite Doug remarrying Faylene, he had still been communicating with Hillary in the months preceding Faylene's death. And things would move fast once she was gone. Just 3 weeks after Faylene's death, Doug married Hillary. The timing of the marriage raised immediate red flags and was the trigger for Faylene's family's initial concern. They knew that Doug began dating Hillary shortly after his divorce from Faylene, but they also knew that Doug did not limit himself to just one relationship, maintaining a paid subscription to the dating website LDS Singles for months after he started seeing Hillary. And of course, there was life insurance. Shortly before Faylene's death, the couple had attempted to increase her life insurance policy from $300,000 to $860,000. The increase was not approved and the policy remained at $300,000, which Doug collected as the sole beneficiary. Doug told police that increasing the amount was Faylene's idea and that he did not agree with it. Despite everything written in her journal and having verbally told family that she would not be around for much longer as far back as a year prior, family and friends insisted that Faylene would never have ended her own life, knowing it could jeopardize her entry into the celestial kingdom. But others argue that taking one's own life does not automatically keep them out of the kingdom. Based on all the findings, they were convinced that it was Doug who was responsible for taking away their loved one. While Faylene's death remained classified as an accidental drowning, Doug was not spared from other consequences. With Faylene's death, Doug's secret infidelities became exposed. As a result, he was excommunicated from the church in 2001 since adultery and sexual misconduct are considered grave violations of its doctrine. 9 months after Faylene's death, her family convinced law enforcement to reopen the case, pointing to the information they believed warranted further investigation. The case was reopened and the police chief, who happened to be friends with Faylene's father, reassigned the case to lead investigator, Cy Ray. But by that point, mistakes had already been made. Given the assumption that Faylene's death was an accident, officers had taken just 5 photographs of the bathroom and bedroom, failing to capture images that could have provided crucial context. Additionally, they neglected to collect key items for forensic analysis, including the bathtub, the sheets from the bed, and Faylene's clothing. And of the forensic samples that were gathered, they were either mishandled or destroyed, leading to doubts about their accuracy. Authorities also lost Faylene's medications, which might have held clues about what happened. To say the case faced challenges would be an understatement. Law enforcement struggled for years to build a strong enough case against Doug, hampered by the missteps and lost evidence early on. But their luck would eventually change. The case gained momentum 4 years after Faylene's death in July 2005. Doug's friend Jim McEllier had approached Faylene's family with incriminating information about Doug. He claimed that Doug had confessed to killing Faylene. Investigators wanted to have a chat with him. When Detective Ray contacted Jim McEllier, Jim said that he didn't know anything and didn't want to get involved. Another year would pass without any progress. Then, on January 27, 2005, Faylene's sister, Shirlene Patterson, contacted Ray again. She said that Jim had approached her family claiming again that he had crucial information about Faylene's death and would share the information if they gave him a $10,000 loan. Detective Ray worked with Shirlene to find a way to get Jim to tell them what he knew. He suggested staging a meeting in a wired car with undercover officers nearby. 2 weeks later, Shirlene and her husband met Jim in their wired car in the parking lot of a Walmart. Jim got into the car and Shirlene handed him a $10,000 check. He then described visiting Doug the day after Faylene's death. According to Jim, Doug said that Faylene wanted to go to heaven, and that he had helped her get to sleep. He said that Doug admitted crushing Ambien, putting it into capsules that Faylene regularly took, then giving them to her. He then said that Doug told him he filled the tub with water, undressed Faylene, and placed her in the tub while she was still conscious but groggy. When she started stirring, he said Doug claimed he held her under until she drowned. Once Jim left the car, police arrested him for extortion and withholding evidence. Detective Ray offered him immunity in exchange for full cooperation. Facing the threat of jail time, Jim agreed to help. Detective Ray didn't waste any time. That same evening, Jim would conveniently bump into Doug at a building where Doug was holding a seminar. The two hadn't seen each other in over a year. Jim had been coached by Detective Ray to tell Doug that authorities were asking him about Fayleen's death earlier that day. Jim said, "I kind of panicked and told them I hadn't seen you for a couple of days after she died. They claimed they had information about what you told me about that morning." He went on to say that he had not told anyone about what you told me about what really happened to Fayleen. "What do you mean about what really happened? What did I say?" "About putting her to sleep." "What I told you, I told everyone," Doug said. Referring to the police, Jim replied. They implied that somebody told them something. Doug told him, "I don't really remember at all that conversation." Jim reminded him, "You said it was like you were dreaming." "You'll have to explain it to me, Jim." Jim described, "You went in the bathroom and you put her to sleep." "I did put her to sleep." "What do you mean?" "Put in the bathtub. Put her to sleep." Then a week later you said that's not what you meant. Doug replied, "Number one, Jim, these people say things and try to scare people. Just tell the truth." Jim reminded Doug of being alone in the house with him. Doug replied, "The only thing that concerns me with what you said is that I said that I put her to sleep in the tub. There's a lot of confusion, but the bottom line is I don't believe she killed herself. And I know I didn't kill her. And if all this comes out, all it's going to do is make her look bad when she was one of the most phenomenal people on the planet. If they want to come after me, they can try, but I know what happened. It was a really bad situation, but I loved her with all my heart." No one knows whether Doug realized that authorities had wired Jim, but it's certainly possible with Jim asking for confirmation of his confession right out of the gate. But in the end, the wiretapping didn't yield anything even remotely close to a confession. But, confession or not, authorities felt that Jim's allegations were enough. They arrested Doug and charged him with first-degree murder in connection with Fayleen's death. The evidence against Doug appeared damning, but the full story was yet to unfold. As Doug fought to defend himself, his supporters felt he faced unfair obstacles at every turn, starting with the very reopening of the case. According to Doug's defenders, the family convincing authorities to reopen the case was not as genuine as it seemed. They noted that Fayleen's family remained amicable with Doug after her death, with 5 of them continuing to work as senior managers in his company for 6 months after her death. But then, those family members attempted a hostile takeover of the business, pressuring Doug to leave. It failed and was followed by animosity. And within a month, the family pressed authorities to reopen the case, making accusations against Doug. They contended that Fayleen's father's close relationship with the Gilbert police chief, including the 2 of them attending the same church, influenced the chief's decision to take the case away from the investigator who found no evidence of foul play and assign it to his relative, Cy Ray, instead. His supporters also claimed that the pill bottles and forensic evidence that were conveniently lost would have proved that Fayleen's death was either accidental or of her own doing. And of course they referenced Fayleen's journal entries stating it was God's will for her to die, entries that began well before she and Doug had reconciled and remarried. Hillary had even recalled how Fayleen told her during a phone call shortly before the fall that her death would be soon. And then there was Jim McEllier, appearing out of nowhere, instantly boosting suspicion of Doug's guilt. He seemed too good to be true to law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm good.
Perhaps he was. After the failed attempt to draw a confession from Doug, Jim would later eventually recant most of his statements about Doug's confession, admitting that he fabricated it and claiming that he was coerced by police. In a 2006 interview with the Phoenix New Times, he elaborated on his recantation, stating, "Doug is an asshole, but I can't honestly say if he did or didn't kill Fayleen, who was a real sweet lady. I definitely got the feeling that the detective wanted Doug to be strung up on a post and he didn't care how he got there. I wish I never had gotten involved in any of this." But despite McEllier having been the catalyst for Doug's arrest, his decision to recant did not result in any of the charges being dropped. Authorities would continue to build a case against him. The investigation languished for 3 years due to lack of evidence while Doug remained incarcerated. When the trial finally began, it unfolded as a dramatic legal battle, capturing intense media attention and public intrigue. The defense argued that Fayleen's death was either a tragic accident or attempted suicide, and that Doug had no reason to harm his wife. They reference the high levels of Ambien in her system and Fayleen's letters and journal entries. What they did not present in court, however, were Fayleen's actual journal entries,
What?
Prosecutor Juan Martinez successfully blocked their inclusion, arguing that the writings were irrelevant or prejudicial.
Yo, that guy's
The
actually a
defense was
super
allowed
good
to
lawyer.
reference Faylene's statements about being ready to die, but the jury could not see her words for themselves. It was another blow to the defense, as they intended to use the journal entries to document Faylene's mindset. But the prosecution faced an uphill battle as well. Now facing trial without their star witness's recanted statement, they presented Doug Grant as a fiend, whose oversized libido triggered him to murder his wife so he can be with another woman. They argue that he fabricated dreams and visions to convince Faylene that she had to die as part of God's plan, positioned Hillary as her replacement, and deliberately administered what would be a lethal combination of prescription drugs to hasten that happening. They also called into question Faylene's fall in Utah, noting that it was highly suspicious due to her lack of severe injuries from such a significant height. As the prosecution presented their case, they faced heavy criticism by Doug's defense and his supporters for several controversial actions during the trial. In addition to the jury not being able to see Faylene's journals, they were also not allowed to hear about Faylene's family members working for Doug after her death, or about their hostile takeover attempt. The prosecutor also successfully prevented testimony, both about numerous accidental deaths caused by Ambien, and also about inconsistencies in Doug's stepdaughter's accounts of that morning. Doug's denial in the recorded conversation by Jim McEllier was also not disclosed to the jury or the media. Doug's supporters argued that the trial scene heavily tilted in the prosecution's favor. While the prosecution was allowed 14 weeks to present their case, the defense was granted only 2 weeks to make theirs.
What? That's crazy.
And as the jury deliberated for weeks without reaching a decision, it became apparent that they were struggling to agree on a verdict. In response, Prosecutor Martinez was allowed to add a lesser charge of manslaughter. This gave the jury an easier option to convict Doug, which, although legal, Doug's supporters felt was unfair. Overall, they argued that the prosecution pushed for a conviction based on emotions rather than solid evidence, and that all their controversial actions made it impossible for the jury to make an informed decision. The jury would take 12 more days after the new lesser charge was introduced. As anticipated, they could not agree on first or second-degree murder. They found Doug Grant guilty of manslaughter, indicating that they believe he recklessly caused Faylene's death. Doug was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The case was closed, but
Only 5
questions
years?
lingered about whether justice had been truly served.
That's crazy.
Detective Cy Ray's role in the investigation against Doug Grant remains one of the most contentious and criticized aspects of the case. Ray faced allegations of bias, including manipulating evidence and exerting pressure on witnesses to align their testimonies with the prosecution's narrative. He was also accused of withholding key evidence, including Faylene's highly revealing goodbye letters and interview tapes, depriving the defense, prosecution, and even grand juries of crucial context. Lost evidence, like the prescription bottles, only deepened suspicions of misconduct or negligence. More recently, Ray has transitioned to a career in forensic technology and consulting, founding a cellular geolocation mapping company in 2014, which was acquired in 2021. Ray has worked on high-profile cases and been featured as an expert on programs like 48 Hours and Dateline. He also co-hosts a crime podcast along with his wife, where he draws on his experience in law enforcement and technology. In early 2020, the prosecutor in Doug Grant's trial, Juan Martinez, was fired from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office after 32 years as a prosecutor following an internal investigation into his conduct. And later that year, he was disbarred, following multiple allegations of professional misconduct, including sexual harassment of female colleagues and unethical behavior in high-profile cases. Martinez's disbarment has raised questions about the cases he prosecuted, including Doug Grant's.
Real-life
Critics
Saul.
argue that Martinez's aggressive tactics and ethical violations may have compromised the integrity of Doug's trial. However, no formal appeals or overturned convictions have been directly tied to his disbarment or termination. Doug's supporters called his conviction a miscarriage of justice. In 2009, in a quest to clear Doug's name, they launched a site called Doug Grant Truth, documenting the biases, corruption, and misconduct they claimed occurred during the investigation and trial. But for every person who supports Doug, there are just as many who are convinced of his guilt. They argue that it made no sense for Faylene to remarry Doug if she truly believed she was about to die, especially if she genuinely wanted him to end up with Hillary instead. Instead, they believe that Doug remarried Faylene fully aware of her death wish. with the intention of cashing in on her life insurance policy. To them, his tears were nothing more than an act. Also in 2009, Doug's stepdaughter Jenna Stradling, 19 years old by that time, filed a multi-million-dollar wrongful death lawsuit against Doug, contending that Doug was responsible for her mother Faylene's death. It sought punitive damages and aimed to prevent Doug from profiting from media deals related to the case. Key evidence that favored Doug, which was excluded from the criminal trial, was allowed in the civil trial, resulting in the judge ruling in Doug's favor. The judge concluded that there was no proof of actions beyond negligence and no clear evidence of intentional wrongdoing. The judge stated, "The evidence presented in the case at bar has not convinced this judge that it is highly likely that the defendant intentionally killed Faylene Grant. Given all of the circumstances, including but not limited to those discussed above, the court declines to award punitive damages." Notable was the fact that Doug won the civil case despite not having a formal legal team. He represented himself with only the help of his wife and children, while Faylene's family had the advantage of a professional legal team to represent them. Jim McElliott was never formally charged with extorting money from Faylene's family. He has generally remained out of the spotlight after giving the 2006 interview to the Phoenix New-Times, where he criticized law enforcement's tactics. After serving his 5-year prison sentence, Doug returned to run his business. Doug and Hillary remained married throughout Doug's incarceration and after his release in 2015. Together, they continued raising Faylene's 2 sons as a blended family. The couple also had a daughter, reflecting Faylene's expressed wish for them to have a child together. They named her Neve, which is heaven spelled backward. In 2022, Doug was inducted into the International Natural Bodybuilding Association's Hall of Fame, recognizing his dedication to promoting drug-free bodybuilding and his impact on the industry. He expanded his business to another city and conducts seminars and workshops on holistic health and nutrition. Despite moving forward, lingering questions about Doug's guilt or innocence continue to shadow him and his family, with opinions split about whether justice was served either way. What are your thoughts? Was justice or injustice served? Think Doug was a murderer or just a sleaze? Or both? Please share your verdict in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like how we presented this case, we'd really appreciate a moment of your time to tap like, and sharing really helps us as well. And be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to catch our future videos the moment they drop. Look at you.
No shit. Shit. Fuck it. Casey Penny's going out of business. Rip. Rip.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of True Talk, a companion podcast to the film The Truman Show, created by me, Christopher Bingham. This episode is probably the one that veers the most off from the actual text of the film and into the realms of speculation, but it gathers together my changing experience of this film over having watched it regularly since I was about 10 years old. I am now, at time of recording, 31 years old, and I've watched this movie probably 50 plus times. I love it. I've probably, to be honest, overdone it, and after this I need to take a break and maybe not watch it for a few years. But over that time, my interpretation of it, my enjoyment of it, and of different aspects of it have drastically changed. The Truman Show is about Truman finally figuring out a grand conspiracy, that his life is a fabrication and that everyone he knows is an actor. But when exactly does he figure it out? Over the 20 years I've been a fan of this film, my perspective on this topic has shifted, ultimately taking me to a reading that dramatically recontextualizes the film. There are many moments throughout the film where little nuances in performance, facial expressions, or single words are used to distract, conceal the truth, avoid something, or draw attention. One amazing way to watch this film is to actively imagine it as a kind of spy or detective flick, where everyone is in on the secret, but who's going to give it away? How much does Truman know, when, and what sets him off? The obvious inciting incident is the crashdown of a studio light in the street outside Truman's house, right at the beginning of the film. This is actually a part of the story that was always there, that's been there since the very first draft of the script. It's positioned as the first of several weird things that caused Truman to question his reality. And it's no accident that the light is labeled Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, and one traditionally associated with guiding travelers. Thus begins Truman's own journey of discovery, and the beginning of a reactionary phase for the cast and crew of his life as they scramble to make excuses and cover things up. Classical Clive is the first up, lying on the radio about a damaged aeroplane.
This is Classical Clive with Classical Drive, so why don't you forget about the perils of flying? Settle back and let this music calm you down.
Fuck you, Classical Clive. There are lots of moments in the film where the dynamic changes and where members of the cast give themselves away, some obvious, some more open to interpretation. This isn't entirely comprehensive, but I'm going to go through a list. The twins Ron and Don and their very noticeable product placement.
And how's your lovely wife?
The ticket guy at the crossing watching Truman to see if he'll actually get on the boat. Basically, anytime Meryl advertises a product and does her advertising voice.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this new Mococo drink?
The rain sequence where rain selectively falls on Truman for a little bit before the rest of it catches up. Lots of moments in the high school flashback, things like the "how is it going to end" pin, Sylvia not knowing her name, saying that not knowing Japanese, saying that she can't talk to him, Sylvia's fake dad, and basically that whole scene.
Konnichiwa.
You take Japanese.
The radio malfunction on his way to work, the awakening scene with the, iconic music from Dalvitz, with the elevator green room and the traffic and Truman starting to feel like he can control things. Characters checking their watches, repeated movements, or not responding to Truman in normal ways.
It's when I'm unpredictable. They can't, Anything happen? No. Mm-hmm.
His mother being pushy with photo albums to try and, seemingly try and take him off the scent of doctored photos. The travel agent still having her makeup cloth on. The little girl on the bus pointing at Truman and saying, "Is that you-know-who?" before being shushed by another actress. The sad bus driver, the police officer using his first name at the power plant, and then the kind of police officer in the next scene leaning in, which I've mentioned, kind of trying to get a peek of the celebrity.
You're welcome, Truman.
Obviously the moment where he's hassling Meryl and she calls out and addresses the crew.
Do something!
And in the heart-wrenching Marlon scene where he says he would never lie to him. That look that Jim Carrey gives in that moment, there is a moment that feels, to me at least, like recognition. His eyes lift slightly, then he turns to Marlon with this kind of horror. The beauty of it, of course, is that it's ambiguous, but to me, it feels like in that moment, Truman realizes he can't trust Marlon. To figure out how much Truman knows and when, you kind of have to work backwards. In the dramatic climax of the story, Truman tricks the cameras and escapes through a hole he has dug leading from his basement to the front lawn. And from there, he makes it to the coast and steals a boat. All of this happens off-screen, and by the time we catch up to him, he's already out to sea. I had probably watched this movie at least 10 times when on a rewatch, I noticed something that completely shook my understanding of Truman and the timeline of his escape. Just 9 minutes
such a good
into
movie.
the film, after the scene at the dock, Merrill returns home to find Truman gardening.
Hi, honey.
He's positioned on his knees facing away from the camera and doesn't stand up to meet her. She advertises the chef's pal. He says,
Wow. That's amazing.
she makes a joke about missing a spot and then leaves.
Truman, missed a spot.
It's a short, harmless scene that illustrates their kind of lackluster marriage. I'd never thought much about it, although I had always found it kind of odd that we have this big shot of Jim Carrey's ass and he stays on the ground the whole time. Then it hit me. He's digging the hole. He's digging the hole. We're not even 10 minutes into the movie, and Truman is executing his escape plan. This changes everything. With this in mind, I think it's very safe to say Truman knows at least something about what's going on. He suspects things even if he hasn't had them confirmed. He suspects enough to be planning his escape. When you realize this, it kind of flips the table. You're watching Truman try not to give away what he already knows. If you've read articles about The Truman Show, like I certainly have, you might have seen the protagonist described as unaware or oblivious, and he's not. The more I've watched this film, the more I've come to believe that Truman, from the very start, already knows more than they think he does. We see him attempt a few exploratory missions, testing his environment, seeing what he can get away with, but also feeds them misinformation. In a way, after years of not knowing he was living on a stage, we watch Truman finally become a performer. Nothing more beautifully conveys this than when, in the final moments of the film, he recites his catchphrase,
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
That's actually a
then
crazy
takes
way
a
of looking
bow.
at it.
The look on his face in that moment is the look of a man who has played everyone. Of course, no single reading of a film or piece of art should be treated as gospel. The great thing about good art is that it can and should be interpreted differently by different people. A
That's
lot
actually
of
a
what I'm
crazy way of
reading
looking
into
at it.
comes down to tiny nuances in performance,
That's nuts.
details that might be happy accidents or just unintentional. If they were intentional, they may have been injected at later stages in the process, such as the power of editing and post-production. They may not have been inventions of the director or of the writer. It's also entirely possible that I've watched this film too many times and I've overthought it, and my theories at this point are basically fan fiction. But I think, dear listener, that Truman knows what's going on before the film even starts. Nowadays, when I watch The Truman Show, I delight in this level of detail and speculation that turns the whole movie on its head. It's at once both complicated and kind of simplified. The entire 120 minutes are Truman's escape, and we're watching everybody else figure it out.
That's
Thank
actually
you for listening
nuts.
to True Talk.
That's actually a crazy way of looking at it. Crazy way of looking at it. Pretty smart though. I never really put together the fact that he would be digging the hole out front of his house. I always thought it was obnoxious how they planted the camera angle, right? But no, it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense. makes fucking sense, you know.
Respawn have decided to bring back something they disabled for literally the whole of Season 23, as in the new update they finally listened to the community and made a very important decision. If you're not aware, last season, throughout the whole of Season 23, pubs had a takeover active called Rift Relics, which were essentially packs that had some really cool and special items within them, like the EPG, the Pulse Blade, guns with Season 1 balancing, and also the OG charge rifle. And these were definitely controversial in their own right, they definitely overstayed their welcome within Apex, but they brought another issue as well. While Rift Relics were active, which was the whole season, nobody could earn any achievement badges through normal Apex games. You couldn't get a 4K badge, you couldn't get a 2K badge,
Yo,
you couldn't
what's
get a 50
up,
badge,
Connor? How you
couldn't
been?
get a 20 bomb badge. So we had players getting completely legit 20 kill games and not getting that special badge, which is so hard to get. This is because Rift Relics were introduced in a thing Respawn called takeovers. And takeovers are a type of event where Respawn add experimental gameplay mechanics to normal trios and duos. So essentially trios and duos are taken over by these gameplay mechanics. So whenever trios and duos was taken over, Respawn would disable your ability to get badges because some takeovers would allow you to have multiple lives, which would make getting a 20 bomb super easy, but Rift Relics definitely didn't deserve to have badges disabled, especially for the whole season, because Rift Relics just dropped cool guns. They were relatively balanced and fun to play with, but Respawn said, no, you're not getting any badges in this mode, which screwed over a load of people. So when everyone saw that this season was going to start with a takeover, which is the Mythic Mayhem Royale takeover, where Rampart care packages drop from the sky with special editions of R301s in them, people thought, oh great, another season where I can't get a 4K badge and I get screwed out of legit games where I get a 4K badge. But luckily, a few people started noticing when the season started, they were actually getting badges despite there being a takeover active. Even I noticed this. I got a 3K on Ash and saw the badge, which showed Respawn had activated badges in these modes. Later on, it would be confirmed this was intentional by Respawn on Twitter by them saying, to clarify, badges are currently earnable in the Mythic Mayhem Royale mode. We've heard your previous concerns about not being able to earn them during takeovers, and we understand it can be frustrating to not get credit when you finally earn that 20 bomb. So it does seem like Respawn have finally listened to the feedback, a little late if I do say so myself, but we can now get badges in takeovers, which is good because guess what? This season is going to be full of takeovers again. We have the Mythic Mayhem Royale takeover going from February 11th to March the 3rd, which is currently happening now. And then on February the 25th, Redemption Trios and Duos will become a takeover as well.
Apex today?
This takeover is essentially
I don't know
going
about
to give
today,
everybody
son.
Respawn, and you can steal respawn tokens off each
Maybe
other,
later,
which is a cool
some,
concept.
but
so I think
not right
Respawn
now.
may disable badges in this mode because obviously it's going to be easy to get a 20 bomb because everybody does essentially have 2 to 3 to 4 lives, but it does only last a week, so we probably won't be able to obtain badges for a week. And then after that, Relic Weapons, Trios and Duos starts on March the 4th and goes to the 10th, which really should have badges enabled because essentially the only difference is weapons spawn fully kitted on the ground, and the only weapons on the ground are gold and mythic tier. Now, you may think this sounds OP, but when everyone has gold and mythic weapons, everyone's on a level playing field, a 20 bomb is still going to count. So hopefully Respawn keep their word about listening to our concerns and do allow us to earn badges in the further takeovers in this season. Maybe not in Redemption because you do have multiple lives, but definitely in the following takeovers. If you are worried about takeovers ruining the game though, don't worry, Standard Trios and Duos comes back on March the 11th.
March 11th?
Goes to
That's like
March
over a whole
24th.
month.
And at
Jesus
the exact
Christ.
time that's running, we will be getting 3 Strikes Mystery Legends coming as an LTM. Both of these modes go until March the 24th, which all but confirms we are going to be getting our mid-season update on March the 24th. So yeah, don't worry about badges right now. You won't be able to get some for a period of 1 week when Redemption comes back, but for the rest of the modes, I think you will be able to get badges. Thank you Respawn for listening, and please never bring back Rift Relics again, otherwise I think I might go insane.
They got a tick? No tick yet.
What's up, Rocky? My toes taste like it, eh? You just gotta lick them, bud. Come on.
Top 8 best team in the world is, I mean, I know we could have played better. We should have played better. And we easily could have like gotten top 5 at LAN and top 3. But I mean, if you take a step back in the competitiveness of it, of like, I need to be the best person in the world or I suck. If you take a step back from that, I mean, being 8th out of 40 teams, the best team in the world it's a pretty cool achievement. You know what I mean? If you take a broad look at it, I think it's an achievement for sure. Should have easily been better, and it needs to be better, and it will be better next time, but way fucking better than last LAN though. My confidence as an IGL was so high this LAN. I felt very comfortable competing. Like the first 2 LANs that I was in, I was like nervous a little bit. My nerves kind of got to me a little bit. But now that I've gotten more experience at LAN, this LAN I was so confident. And like JMO and everybody like they could tell on Furia that like I was way more confident as like an IGL this LAN. And I think it's just because I finally got like actually experience. I think we've improved a lot, and I don't think, sure, we didn't have like a winning performance, but I think we actually played pretty well this year. What's the biggest thing keeping Furia from winning LAN? Is it luck? I genuinely think mechanically we're lacking a lot. I think the thing that Furia is having issues with as a roster right now is mechanically we're not playing well. Like mechanically we're not doing enough at all. We are way too passive when we shouldn't be. We don't look for opportunities as much as we need to be. And we're not actually getting opportunities as much as we need to be as a team either. I actually genuinely think that the biggest problem on Furia is mechanical skill right now. The problem with Furia is if we don't have perfect macro, perfect play calling situations and taking advantage of them, we do really bad and get no kills every game. But when you're a team like let's say, like for example, like if you're a team like Alliance, for example, and you have 2 fucking demon controller players that are just cross-mapping people for free, those types of players create opportunities and shit that you don't normally have, right? And those things are incredibly valuable on a roster, and we don't do a lot of that on our team for some reason. We just don't, and it's really bad, and it's a massive issue. In my opinion, you don't have to focus on macro. You don't have to have insanely perfect macro every game if you just have people on your team that are just going to blow someone up, right? The more mechanical skill a roster has, the less macro intensive you need to like be. And on top of that, the more mistakes you can make, right? You might find yourself in a position where you're at a massive disadvantage and you're kind of just bound to lose. Like, let's say you're fucking getting gated by a team that's literally on high ground behind you, zones closing, you have no win condition, but and it just looks impossible, right? But one of your fucking teammates just ego chows the fucking guy hard peeking you and one clips him for free. You went from a fucking scenario where you were basically guaranteed to die with no KP and just fucking no points to a scenario where you actually just got an opportunity to rotate and pick up 3 kills and take that team spot. So mechanical gun skill creates opportunities that you normally don't have, and it can create just way more window of consistency, and it also creates a leniency of not needing to have like the most perfect macro or decision making, right? You could make a bad decision. You could like call to fight a team, and that call to fight a team is actually really fucking stupid and really bad. But if you just blow that team up and no one on your team even goes down, you insta armor swap and you're back in the fight, like that went from a stupid fight to actually a good call because you just nuked that team and got 3 kills right away. Understand? But like if a team is not as mechanically strong and you call to fight that team and you just die and get insta thirded, like, then yeah, it was a bad call. But you can make bad calls good calls just by having a lot of mechanical gun skill, and that's the biggest thing on the team right now, I think. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what the solution is for that. And I'm not like trying to point fingers or anything, because and like I'm not trying to like, yeah, I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm not gonna name names, but there was just situations at LAN, this past LAN, where we just individually choked really hard, like really badly. And again, I'm not saying I played perfect either. I'm not ever going to say that. Anyone can always play better, and I definitely made mistakes this land too, right? I definitely fucking did. But there is just some...
Damn, what a little rat. What a fucking little rat.
Hey pasa chicos, so last night Drop, Yanya and Nok announced they are separating now. During the LAN they played pretty decent and made into the finals. But in the finals, after the first few games, they made good amount of mistakes and that thing cost them the ALGS championship LAN. Individually they are really good players but they don't perform well when they are playing together. So let's start the video with Thick Boy Drop where he explain everything about the team, meta and why they suck at the LAN.
Yeah, chat. I'll like kind of like very briefly like speak about the roster mania shit.
An upgrade.
Basically, Noct and I are both going our separate ways. Like obviously you saw he put an LFT out. There wasn't anyone that like got dropped from the team, so like that wasn't what happened. I ended up going my separate way. Noct ended up going his separate way, and then I'm not gonna like speak for Yanya because I don't think he said anything, but I don't know, it's kind of like simple math. If two people are going separate ways, you can kind of figure out what's happening with the third. So that's pretty much what it is. Does Theo Yanya take the PL spot? Nah, Bastillo was never on our roster. I don't really know what's, I can't really speak for like what's going on with, can obviously like say that we aren't going to be teaming with each other anymore. Yeah, I mean, Chad, in terms of the reasoning behind everything as well, is it's just like the roster mania that's happening this time around. Like the roster mania that's going on this time around just had a lot of moving pieces in it, and there was a lot of opportunities, you know, to kind of, you know, like explore other options. Like that's what like a lot of people have been saying is like, you know, a lot of people were exploring their options because of how many changes were happening throughout NA. You know, we came off like a 14th place or whatever. We didn't really play the greatest throughout the whole LAN together. And so like that was just kind of the reasoning, at least for me personally, was just like, yeah, I mean, chat, like in terms of our LAN, I guess I can kind of talk about that too. In terms of our LAN, we just had a bad read on the meta. Rampart was obviously very, very strong at this LAN. I wanted to play Rampart, but we just like, I was getting told like, no, Rampart sucks. We shouldn't play it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Right, you're playing with Sykes.
We just didn't play it. And yeah, it ended up f***ing us. I literally like vividly remember saying like 2 weeks before LAN, I was like, bro, I think Rampart is going to be insane.
Actually, it wasn't even mirror you. It was now.
The bad read on the meta was a very, very big thing because when we swapped to Rampart, we actually started being able to like play the f***ing game again. It was kind of like just bad read on the meta. A little bit of like team cohesion problems, like Yanya was having a problem with just basically like calling way too much. And like if you watched our POV specifically, like you could literally see like in the game where we literally saved our tournament, like I had to tell Yanya to shut the f up like literally 20 times. And like that was like a problem we were dealing with where he was like kind of like making way too many calls. In group stages, I f***ed up. I like there was like a couple games where I could have made a game-winning call and I just didn't, like in 2 of the games I think. losers bracket. We like finally got our fucking we like finally got our head out of our ass. I told Yanni to shut his fucking mouth. I started actually fucking fully like just grabbing my nutsack and just calling everything. It was kind of like online, we didn't really have any like problems. And then when we got to LAN, I don't know, like I think Yanya's mind just started like kind of defaulting back to like IGLing because that's what he was used to. And it just ended up being like way too much. Like he was basically making like calls in those like hectic split-second scenarios where basically like one person has to make the call. Like you can't like just like one person can't make a certain type of call and then like the team just has to like go with it because it's like hectic split-second scenario, you know? So like that was like a problem we had. We fixed that problem. We actually started playing like pretty well. Like we were like, to be fair, like once we like saved our tournament and losers bracket round 1, we like started playing pretty well. Like we had good games. Like we started like kind of bouncing back like as a team. But yeah, I don't know, like finals, we started off pretty solid and then just like kind of some like really big mistakes happened and like we lost all our momentum. I made a bad call, like the game we were like flying in on Storm Point. Yeah, I don't know, things kind of like started to crumble. Things kind of started to like crumble once we like made a couple big mistakes and got like 0 to like 2-point games off of like pretty like just like preventable mistakes. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing was like just the bad read on the meta because once we put Yanya on Rampart, he was actually able to like fucking play the game again. Like I could tell on Catalyst, like he wasn't really able to like fucking kill people, you know? I don't even know how Alliance did it, to be honest. Like they were like the only team that like actually played Catalyst and like did it well the entire fucking tournament. Like Go Next won for sure, right? Like they played well. You can't like win without playing well, but like I'm talking like playing fucking great, you know what I mean? Like the whole time. Like Alliance, I don't even know how they did it. Like I think they're just insane, like to be honest. Like they're just like literally fucking insane. Because Catalyst was not good in that meta. It really wasn't.
This is good for fuck.
Что за хуйня?
She's actually good, just not for taking space. Like she's good for like taking space, not like holding the spot. What she needed to do. No way.
Какой ты урод ёбаный!
みたいなね。そう、そこがね、最近迷ってる。なんかないかな。
Better.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my
Slam.
god. On the rock.
130 on one. You're all here. All here.
Yeah, charge rampage is so broken, dude.
Hello, Stav, honored guest, eldest. I have an interesting little issue going on here. I'm 32. I just moved back in with a parent to go back to school, try to make my life a little better, save a little money. My girl of 4 years also just moved in with me. Her living situation sucks, but that's neither here nor there. Problem is,
it's a little bit here and there.
Dog.
You and your girlfriend moved in with your parents. It's a little here and there. It's not neither here nor there. So it's part. It's very. It's
None
part
of
of
this
this.
matters what I'm telling you right now.
It's something to keep in mind, man. Anyway, keep going, LD.
There. Problem is, her dog. I haven't had a problem with her dog up until this point, but now her dog is a cock block. Anytime we're in the mood, things are getting hot and heavy.
You're so close to getting it.
He causes problems, and she runs to his aid instead of mine. And it started to piss me the fuck off. Like, I hate the little fucker now. I want to kick him across the fucking room.
Oh wow, dude.
Because we don't get much time, halftime to ourselves. And when this little bastard starts barking and making a scene, she's got to get up, take care of him.
It's incredible that he has personified all of his the negatives of his condition onto a dog.
I know. He's
The
like,
dog
"Look,
is the
this
representative.
doesn't really matter.
Listen, whatever. She moved away from her family because they had schizophrenic episodes.
It's like, dude, you live at home with your parents as a 32-year-old man with your girlfriend.
It's not the dog.
The
That's
dog,
the cock
yes.
block.
The dog is, yes, exactly. He is the personification of all your problems.
A literal scape dog.
He's a scape dog. He is the scape dog
Put
for
all the
sure.
evil on him.
And I guarantee if you kick that dog, you will get laid.
Yeah, definitely. Treat the dog bad.
That's what he's looking for.
I'm
It's like,
sure that'll
would
help.
love that. Hey, babe, want to move in with my dad? I'm going to kick your dog. This will wet
I'm gonna
your
get.
fucking...
If you don't suck my cock, I'll kill your dog. Move in with my family.
Had nothing to do with my dad. All right, I love my dad. It's your dog's fault.
Oh man,
that's so funny to be like, yeah, no, I snared my girlfriend in a dirt hole with an angry badger in it, and I hate this badger so much. Why is he such a dick?
I'm going back to school though. Haven't signed up yet. But, you know.
Keep going, Elders. Let's see if he has anything here for us.
She's got to get up, take care of him, and there goes the mood. Got to try again some other time. So, wondering if you have any advice to deal with this little shit that doesn't involve putting bleach in his dog food or something like that. Maybe I could spike him with some Benadryl and put him to sleep before I feel like it's time to get my fuck on. Hope you can give me some good advice, and can't wait.
This guy's a
to
piece of
go
shit.
See the movie.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Well, now that I know you saw the movie in theaters, hopefully, I take back what I said.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, dude. I don't know what to tell you here. You
More
live
of a real estate issue than a sex thing.
This is Luigi calling. Right?
Nah, Luigi's a man of action. That dog.
That's true. That
dog would be fucking buried by now, dude.
That's crazy.
It's like he probably
Noah on Noah's Ark must have been driven crazy by this.
That's true.
Every animal in the world.
Noah's. That's one of Noah's quotes. Every animal's a cock block.
Yeah, maybe that's why he didn't cheat on his
Noah
wife.
tried to fuck Noah's wife, but it didn't.
I brought 8 horses. Couldn't get to one of them. Fucking every turn, another animal in the way.
So yeah, dude, I don't know what to tell you. You're clearly missing the point here. This is the kind of stuff that happens when you move back in with your fucking parents as a grown man. I don't know. Can you get the dog a cute? How much? Like, where do you have extra space? Can you get the dog a really cute dog house that it can go playing outside while you're getting pussy, and they can come back inside? Like, you're not gonna win with anger and violence. You're going to win by making the dog's life easy. Because the
Maybe
dog
you play with the dog for like 20 minutes or so right before
Yeah.
it's about to
Tucker it
go
out.
fuck.
I also think that if someone's in the mood, they're not going to be like, hey, I know we were getting hot and heavy, but I got to go deal with my dog.
Yeah,
right now."
I had to go clean up some spilled kibble, so I don't want to get my pussy pounded anymore. That's another thing. It's like, is she using the dog to get away from your
I have
advances?
to go replace the dog's flea collar right now as we're about to have sex.
Right when your
Oh,
dick, I feel your dick on my thigh, and all of a sudden I have to fucking take the dog out for a walk. So I think you're missing there is no way it is simply the dog's behavior that is stopping you from getting pussy.
But we could be wrong.
We could be wrong.
We could be wrong.
Here's the thing: if it is the dog's behavior, it's because the dog is left its home. It feels like scared and anxious. Maybe it wants your girlfriend's attention, whatever. But also, everything we just said about the dog might be true of your girlfriend. It's a weird situation. She's moved in with you and your family. How much space do you guys have? This is not an aphrodisiac. This situation is not the horny
apartment.
Yeah, exactly. Are you in the basement? You can hear your mom walking above you. Like, what's the setup here, man? Is it a horny setup? Doesn't sound like it to me. So yeah, I would just say make the dog's life easier, and then also be realistic about what your life is going to be like right now. And maybe this is too much. School, huh? What are you going to school for? I've said this many times.
Veterinary.
Yeah.
He's going to be a dog trainer.
I've said this many times. When you're it's like grad school is hitting the snooze button on life. Yeah. It's not solving any issues, man. So many of my friends in their 30s that are thinking about it, it's like, unless your job is like, we'll pay for it and it will immediately be this kind of raise. Like, unless you tangibly see how it's going to positively impact your life. We are the generation that saw that higher education was bullshit. And because you don't want to face that head on, you're going to go to fucking grad school again.
You're going to blame a dog?
Yeah. Exactly. It's literally not the dog's fault, man.
His entrance essay is about the dog. This dog.
What obstacles have you dealt with in your life? Well, I had Bones on TNT, and I was rubbing my girlfriend's pussy, and then all of a sudden her Shih Tzu starts yapping, and there goes the head.
Dogs love bones.
They do love bones.
Right in.
This is just to piggyback off of a caller previously mentioning how his girlfriend forbid pornography, and it's something that we have an agreement upon in my marriage.
Interesting.
Now, I'm just trying to understand, am I being a lame wife by thinking it's cheating if you watch pornography?
Cheating?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
You've got bigger problems than you can see.
Am I being a lame wife? Yes.
No, it's fucking cheating. I'm sorry, that's cheating. How's that not sexual cheating?
Watching porn is cheating? Come on, what are we talking about here?
Oh my God, guys.
This is insane. Let's hear her out, but it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Being a lame wife by thinking it's cheating if you watch pornography.
Yes, next question.
I try not to be like a prudish, traditional lame wife. I, with fervor, give sloppy toppy on a daily basis.
All right. Now the plot thickens.
By the way, actually, I'm almost like jealous of her.
Yeah.
Like she's so horny.
Yeah.
Or like you're like,
yes,
that's my
totally.
like your husband watching porn is making you be like, I fucked that whore. Like it's like oh my God, like
now,
you're that on top of it.
You're right, and sloppy toppy on a daily basis.
Jesus Christ.
Now it's getting interesting because I think, are you weird? Yes. Do you have a hell of a bargaining chip if you want to make your husband change any of his behavior?
You're that obsessed with your husband?
Also, yes. Like, look, if so, anyway, let's finish this up. But but this is interesting.
I try to keep myself looking good for my husband, so I'm trying to understand if you could explain to me from your perspective, like, why do men go to pornography, and why is it not considered cheating?
Wrap her head around it.
Because I just think that looking at naked people and like going to strip clubs is cheating. I always think it's cringy. Like if I watch The Sopranos and Tony Soprano's, that's the problem.
Don't bring Tony into it.
I also love watching Sopranos and being like, the most morally reprehensible thing they're doing is looking at kids.
Yeah, I know.
So bad. Irredeemable, evil human beings.
Chopping people's heads off on the regular.
But She's appealing to us. She's trying to put it in terms we understand. Let's figure this all out, Eldest. Let's keep going here.
And he's like looking at young naked girls. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm pro sex worker, 100%. But it's like a single man's game, in my opinion. I don't know.
But it's like a
Sorry
what?
for being long-winded,
Single man's
but
game.
just looking for your explanation here. Certainly not asking you to defend this, but just trying to be a cool wife and maybe learning something from this. So thank you, love your show, love you. Bye.
Well, you gotta stop trying to be a cool wife, doll.
Yeah, just be yourself. That's number
Be
one.
your sloppy self.
You're giving top. Listen, here's the thing. The point I was trying to make earlier is
Your
like,
rule, honey.
yeah. Is this ridiculous? Yes. If you're blowing your husband every day, you can ask like 5 ridiculous favors.
Yeah.
You could be like, I don't like it when you eat green Skittles. And you'd be like, great, I'll never have a green Skittle again in my life. You know what I mean? Like, you do have a hell of a, like I said, it's a hell of a bargaining chip. But why don't I consider porn cheating is like, it's hard for me to like, how is it cheating? He has no relationship with these people. He's jacking. Can he jack off? Is he allowed to jack off? Is thinking about another lady's tits cheating to you? Like, that's what we're talking about here?
This is pointing to a very delicate ego, girl. You gotta, this is very...
I think you may be right.
You cannot, what? This is your husband? In what world is him looking at porn a violation of your marriage or his feelings for you? This is, and also, I mean, exactly, the thought police? I mean, we're going, right? I mean, it's like, it's something you're just going to have to get over, right? Or if he's, I mean, what's his reaction? We don't know.
So this is hard to, this is such a fundamental question where she's like, why isn't porn cheating? And I'm trying.
Because it's not.
Yeah, I'm trying.
It's actually quite simple.
I'm trying so hard to give her.
It's ancient. Looking at it, once you start trying to regulate the fantasy life of someone else, you're fucking done. You cannot do that. It's actually an abomination. I actually think it's actually violence, sweetie, what you're doing. And I'm actually not even remotely kidding.
You're being violent.
You cannot regulate other people's imaginations and sexualities.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to go, I wish that you didn't need them or whatever about pornography, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I guess we have to draw a line somewhere. And it's like imagination.
Wait till he starts cheating on you.
Yeah, exactly. Imagination and fantasy, you gotta be allowed to do that.
This is the most basic human. This is the most. Is he gonna wake up and go, sweetie, I had a dream. I got a blowjob from the woman from Jamba Juice or whatever. And then you're gonna be like, this is very.
Yes.
What's going on here? I mean, there's got to be something historical here that's pulling on this that we're not hearing about.
Right. It's like, look, it's a beating off aid. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, if you let this guy beat off, which is crazy to think that you wouldn't allow someone to beat off.
In the shower on Easter is the only time,
he has to bleach the tub down right afterwards. It's like, I guess I'm just it's just a fucking... It's not real. He's not trying to fuck those people. He's just trying to get a nut off.
It's not real. It's a fantasy. It's a cave painting. It's a drawing in a fucking book from. It's not about you.
Yeah, and then if the reason you're blowing him every day is because you're trying to compete with.
Well, that's what I'm worried about.
If you want to do it, great. But if you're like, well, if I hold up my end of the bargain, which sounds a little repressive.
What's he giving you? I start going, what's so good about this guy?
I know. What is the setup here? Cool. And also, is this an issue? Like, how much? If you're sucking his dick every day, how much pornography is this guy watching?
I know. What's going on with him?
How old is he? Is he good for? Is he a multiple nuts a day guy? I mean, I don't know.
By the way, how long? I'm really stuck on BJ every day. I'm really having trouble with this. And like what? And then also BJ every day. Because you want to be a cool wife. Cool wives come up a few times. I want to be a lame wife. I don't want to be a prude. I'm on all fours every day. What's going on?
Yes, I'm trading pussy. It's like you don't have to you just have to behave the way you want. It is. You're right. The cool wife thing is a little are you doing all these things because you feel it's good, or are you doing them because you feel you have to?
Oh, honey,
I'm a little scared of that.
I'm really worried.
And here's the thing. With the porn stuff, it's like. Do you not want to blow him, but you're like, but if I don't, he'll start watching porn?
No, this is getting tricky.
There's a little. I just want you to interrogate
what your feelings are and what you think the role of a wife is, and if you're truly happy to do them. Look, you might search your feelings, and you might think this is everything I want to do, but it's feeling a little, like, especially the porno thing, it's feeling a little old-fashioned. And even though, like, I try to keep myself looking good, I try and give him
I know
head
for
every day.
him, for him.
Yeah, it's like, what
make
about
your ass tight for you,
for
girl.
you? And
No,
then he
but
gets to also fuck you. That's nice.
Also, buckle fucking up. If you're married, he's going
Missed a
to,
call.
by the way,
Bummer.
just straight down the barrel, I guarantee you, he's going to be in love. He's going to have fantasies about a real person.
Sure.
He's going to want it. So
P. Diddler. Mm-mm.
Jovel, last name origin.
God damn. Well, looks like I'm going to probably end the stream. Oh, where the fuck's the guy? Over there. Probably gonna end the stream after this event here. And go watch some Better Call Saul, you know? Stay out of trouble, Shawnee boy. Do this event real quick. Alright, boys. Peace out.